Here at Arena, we create and render all of our content on beast machines built by Asus, Republic of Gamers. If you're keen to play the newest AAA titles or get into content creation, holler at our friends from Asus South Africa and they'll get you in touch with the right people for the right machine.
Alright. Welcome to episode number 5.
Are we counting
Welcome to episode number 5 of the O Show.
Do you count those pre-ones? With those
Yeah, we counted them.
Okay.
We counted them. But this is our third video recording, but our fifth podcast. Welcome, everybody. And today's guest is Dan Spoof Van Wyk. I know you have a second name, but that's your Wynand. Daniel Wynand Van Wyk. And we, of course, are your hosts, the 4-star Nova beard and the Global Elite beard. No, you're the Global Elite. I've got a little bit of a beard coming on here. It's like 4-star Nova at the moment. Yours is the Global Elite.
But the point is you're aiming for...
Yeah, I'm ranking up slowly. A couple more months. But Dan, welcome to the O Show. We have a lot of discussions off camera, which myself and Luca have always found very interesting. And that was, of course, the premise that led us to bring you here onto the podcast. And, of course, to talk about pretty much a host of different topics in CSGO. Of course, every podcast we do about CSGO, we're edging Gareth here closer and closer to playing the game more competitively.
Maybe I should get my first game in.
Yeah, get your first game in soon. Get your 10 minutes or 10 hours in soon.
Have you not played CS?
Not since
Wow.
Source.
Since Source, okay.
So you're really going for quality.
No, it's fine. No, Gareth is...
we're doing a spectrum of opinions from people who know what they're talking about all the way to me.
So we kind of bring on influential people to Gareth, be like, man, CSGO sounds good. I should definitely go for that one.
What is Dota? What's the point?
But anyway, Dan, we've got a bit of tradition here, right? So Gareth is going to drop a beat and you're going to rap about your gaming history.
No.
When did this start?
I didn't
get
sign
the memo?
up for
Did you
this.
guys
I
not get
didn't
the
sign
email?
up for this.
Okay, all right.
No
I'm
ways.
just kidding. But with our guests, we also asked, it's a gaming podcast culture show. So we just want you to tell us a little bit how you got into gaming, what you've done, what are your achievements, what are you doing right now, and the floor's yours.
Yeah, I'm definitely probably one of the relics in gaming. I'm 31 years old now, so I've been playing Counter-Strike for about 15 odd years. Started when I was in school, and yeah, pretty much.
When a guy refers himself as a relic at 31 when you're 32.
Yeah, so I pretty much started at school, and back in the 56k modem days, you guys are probably, or you definitely too young to even know about that.
You've heard stories of it.
Yeah, I've heard about cassette tapes, people playing games on cassette tapes and stuff.
If you don't know about the 7 Rand call more play,
no, I do know about that.
Gamer.
Yeah, it's weekends. You literally at 7 p.m. you log on and you just leave it on for the weekend.
Yeah.
Any family emergencies, they don't matter. You just want to play Dota or CS in your case.
Yeah.
Or download MP3s one every half hour.
That is true, man. But you download those like the 32 bitrate ones.
Yeah.
Like
that sound like you're hearing them through a telephone.
Polyphonic ringtone quality. But Dan, right now, so your gaming history, you say you're relic, and a better word to use is veteran. I like to use that word when I speak about you or the other guys in scene. I say they're veterans. But right now, you're the owner of Carbon, you're the manager of Carbon Dota, you're the coach of Carbon Dota. I mean CS. What I'm talking about. You're the coach of Carbon CS, but the manager of the Dota.
Subliminal message.
To an extent, the Call of Duty PC team, but the CoD team also same. But
I don't really manage the teams. You know, I manage them from an MGO perspective. But I mean, they take care of themselves and work out their own lineups. But in the CS, I'm definitely very, very much involved. I get involved in the lineup as well and do a bit of calling for the team. Yeah,
and I mean that's testament to your most recent achievement was the Vodacom Gamers Fest. Well, as I said, you played a more crucial role in perhaps in their victory, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So you mentioned, as you said, being a veteran in the CSGO scene, and recently you've kind of stepped away from the competitive side of things in terms of playing for yourself. You last kind of featured a Carbon, I think, competitively maybe here at the GWZA LAN. I can feel my beard.
Yeah, even then I was actually just basically subbing in for one of our players that couldn't make the event. But yeah, I mean, I basically decided towards the end of last year that I can't really put in the hours, and I don't want to keep a team back. So where can I add value? And for me, it was definitely the coaching role, and more specifically the kind of in-game leader that's not in-game role as well, which we're still trying to suss out whether that works or not, and how much value that adds.
Do you ever have moments though where you're like, oh man, I would totally sub myself in here?
That's every single day.
I would have done that differently. I would not have pushed there. I would have not. Yeah.
If one of the players just coughs, I'm like, are you sick? Do you need to sub out? I can sub in.
But you miss it, obviously. I mean, it's like
no, definitely.
I mean, I had my first taste of competitive CSGO pretty much in my life the other night when I subbed for Luca's team, and I mean, it was fun. Even for me, who doesn't take CS competitively, I take it seriously as a caster, but as a player, it's like it's a completely different world. Like it's everything's I say structure. There's a lot more structure. I mean, that game was a bit chaos here and there, but there's structure, and I mean, it actually makes the game a lot more fun if you're a more serious player. So I can totally understand when you say you miss play.
But competitive play and pub play are two different games.
100%.
If you treat them the same way, you will feel like speaking from Dota point of view. You play pubs in Dota solo queue, it feels like cancer.
Yeah.
Like you cannot believe the stuff that goes on there when you play competitively, and then you leave even like a first div level team. We're not even talking Premier, and you play a pub. You cannot believe the derp.
No,
it's an absolutely different game.
It's I mean, I agree. It's like well, I guess CS pickup. This is kind of a higher level of play, and sort of pickups are kind of similar to what the IHL used to be in Dota 1.
Only slightly.
Yeah, only slightly. But I mean, if you're playing with 5 mates, you can.
Yeah, no. When you've got a
solo queue,
you solo queue, it's
at times depends. You just got to look and see who's joining the pickup. Like, okay, cool, those guys look alright. Let's join. But so the coaching role. Now, this is something that I wanted to obviously touch on a lot. Is like you guys, in my opinion, were perhaps one of the first teams I think who kind of implemented a coach as an in-game leader. Most guys have a coach. I mean, I would bring up Andreas as an example from Bravado. I'm not too sure the extent of his role as a coach. I don't know. I think he did in-game call for them at a time, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that.
I think quite long ago. Yeah. I think they've since. It doesn't actually transition well from online to LAN. I think there's huge gains to be had having an in-game leader that's actually sitting behind all the players on a LAN environment versus online. Online, it's actually a little bit of a farce. It's not really so effective.
Yeah, you don't have like a view of everyone's screen. You can't really feed off each other's energy and stuff like that. As a coach, you can't like hype your guys up.
I mean,
go boys.
I think it can actually be detrimental having a coach in an online game because you don't necessarily hear everything the players are hearing, and you don't have 5 screens to look at. So I think the players actually have a much better idea of what's going on in the game than you as a coach do. All you really can rely on is kind of the overview.
That kind of thing of like what you practice, in your practice time is what you're going to implement when you play. And so if the guys are not used to the in-game calling, and then you suddenly put them in a LAN environment, and now they have to get used to this kind of sick voice.
They just have to bear with it. When you play online, they just have to bear with it. And at the moment, we're actually trying to groom JT to take over the calling from me. So he's been doing a bit of calling online as well, and he's been doing really well. I think the real benefit is having someone with experience who can analyze kind of the whole match, not just the round, or just not come up with random things to do, but actually take into consideration what the team's been doing, take into consideration what you know about that team, how they play. And that's kind of where I feel I can add value at this point.
But it's a bit of a tough ask as a coach, because I mean you kind of have to be a player that your team respects. Obviously, I mean they're not going to think, okay, Dan's spilling us bullshit about this round. Let's just do what we want to do. Let's push here. Let's do this. And I mean, I guess some players might think they have an idea of what should happen, because I mean you're not in the game playing, so those quick moments where you make a split decision which would win you the round or lose you the round, that's kind of left up to the players' owners. They got to do that, but. I mean, as a coach, as an overall view, just like in between rounds, keeping guys in check, making sure there's still a little bit of momentum, keeping guys hyped up, saying, okay, we've done this, let's try this, let's do that. It's not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, like you're actually calling in the actual round. You're saying, unless you give a suggestion. So you're actually calling round by round.
I'm actually calling around in situations
JT
as well,
push here. Muckman do this, so it's like literally round 4. Okay, I thought it was kind of just like because you often see coaches, because even like in watching live, and you see coaches in the booths behind them, you kind of see them not talk during rounds, and then after round they'll say like this, and they'll have their little notebook or their iPad.
I think that's more traditional coach.
So that's kind of
if
what
your team doesn't have an in-game
doing.
leader, you need someone that's there kind of round by round.
But you're grooming JT to take that role now, so that will put you into the coach position of round by round. Reminding guys that the strats do this, practice this, this smoke.
Because I think there's benefit to that, because when you become kind of in-game and you're watching, even if it is all 5 monitors, you kind of distance yourself from what's going on at a macro level because you're in there, you're in the trenches as well. You're seeing what they see. Whereas I think if you distance yourself a little bit more, you kind of give that role to someone else. You can provide more kind of macro level kind of coaching things. It's the same way as coaches in football or rugby, whatever, half time. They'll have had all the analysis happening for 40 minutes.
Running behind the players. Do this possible.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Afterwards, we're going to analyze entire plays or what the opponents are doing.
I think it's fantastic. And I mean, moving forward as a coach, I mean, do you ever see any value in kind of taking on the role of almost like not bringing in an academy into Carbon, but essentially offering your kind of knowledge? So say now, for example, Arena had to host a play day for people to come and do things. You see yourself being interested in something like going and, coaching youngsters that are doing things like that. I mean, I think that's quite a crucial role. But what I've found with those things, like when you have people teaching young players, you struggle to almost drop yourself down to their level. Like I see from experience watching people coach is that they kind of say things like you're a very experienced player. You'll say things, they'll be like, what? I mean, let's first pick up the rifle and shoot. And then you're like, no, you peek this corner, do this, move like this. Do you think that's something you'd be looking interested in doing, like coaching youngsters in schools, stuff like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I think it's not just isolated to coaches. I think any of the top players can really, add value to younger players that are trying to learn the game, and everyone's got different perspectives and different input they can give. So yeah, no, I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think it would be good for esports if there was kind of a group of guys that invested their time into helping the youngsters
like a
progress quicker.
Like
yeah, because I mean, a lot of people peak quite late in their careers. They in their kind of their late 20s, and then they start peaking when they've sort of learned all the hard lessons. And you can fast track that a lot. Just by getting them to get the right gear, get the right setup, config. And just playing in the right kind of environment that's actually going to help.
We're going to do a big piece soon on gear, so just remember that. We'll talk about that in a bit. But just to touch once more on this coaching thing, have I lost my train of thought now? Yes, I have.
Okay, well, let's jump to the gear thing, because for me, I actually wanted to ask the thing.
Yes,
it's like guys are always punting gear. Like, I use this and I use that, and this is best. Like, does it actually matter?
I actually remember my question. It's a very important one. I get asked this a lot by people in inboxes and stuff. People always say to me, how do I get noticed? What do I do? I want you to answer that question right now. It's a very tough question. But say now, Gareth started playing CSGO now, and he loves it. And now he wants to get into a big team. I saw you raise your eyes.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
But what would you say to that kind of question?
I think the most important thing, obviously, is playing well. I mean, you need to invest time in improving different elements of your game. And the best way to do that is to watch demos, not streams. Download demos, watch top players, and try and mimic what those players are doing. To get noticed, I think there's a few things that you need to get right. Firstly, you need to not be one of those people that just has too much ego.
Postal Facebook.
A lot of people get overlooked, and they can't understand why, and it's because they have these egos, and they're just constantly breaking down other players,
are there
commenting
any kind
negatively.
of like that soft stuff, I'd say, in terms of like who you are as a person, but are there any kind of hard filters that you as a potential scout look for, like a certain MMR or whatever rank, or that you go, look, we're not even considering people who aren't at this rank, or
you're definitely looking at people that are standing out. Generally people that are in kind of weaker teams, and they're standing out. They're definitely head and shoulders above the other players. Those are players that you generally look out for.
Good camaraderie, or they're mates or whatever, but they could be in a stronger team.
Yeah, I think people expect that they can jump from MM or pick up and just jump into a top team. It doesn't work like that. You have to go prove yourself somewhere in a context that is based around what competitive CS is about, which is a team context where you have teammates that you can rely on, and you're playing that role as a teammate effectively. That's the other key thing that you're looking out for. People that don't bait their teammates, people that are trading well, that are able to master different elements of the game, like lurking, or and just thinking intelligently about what they do, and not just relying on maybe somebody has really good aim, but that's not really enough. If you're not leveraging that correctly, and you're not putting yourself in a position where you can add value to in a team context, then it's almost an irrelevant skill to have.
So the kind of go-to is stop playing MMs, watch demos, move into pickups, try to get into an amateur team, stand out, be humble, and then hopefully get noticed eventually. I mean, obviously that's what I've said to people when they ask me, but obviously not in such detail. Obviously, But I mean, yeah, I mean that's kind of gets the go-to. Is
So the
just play
problem always is always that, and hopefully get noticed.
Well, I mean,
That's
the
like
thing is,
anything.
as Dan said, I
people
mean,
ask us
that's
casters, for example, like, so how do I get to cast games? No one's stopping you. Just cast
yeah,
games.
just sit there and just talk.
It's the how I get noticed part that's always the issue, and that's like
About
that's personal network. That's a case of going like
it's all about who you know.
be nice to the right people, play the right games. You know what I mean? And I don't mean games in terms of like moving pieces around and kind of manipulating people. I mean play the right games as in like if you're casting open div games, then eventually, you know, someone will like your cast, whatever, and you get a following in open div, and then you get a first div game. Then you climb to prem. It's like it's a game in that sense. You know?
CS is actually quite easy. I mean, I guess South Africa's probably best example of being noticed, I would say, is probably Sonic. I mean, he played for VNR, then he stood out like a sore thumb, really, and then came Nav, where again he was just top fragging, and then he started playing with the top teams, like playing in mixes with DC and you guys, stuff like that, and then all of a sudden he moved to Energy Esports, and then he was in a team where he still stood out, and then he moved to Bravado, and now that's it. So he kind of made that progression through the way. I mean, he's still a really good player, but now he's kind of found this like
the
level
right team,
level playing ground in Bravado where all the players are high skill, and then he's kind of just, I wouldn't say he still shines, but I mean he's at that top. I wouldn't say he's hit his peak, but he's there. He's at the top now and he's playing. But that's kind of the best example, I think, in SA of someone getting noticed really from just playing pubs and stuff like that. Obviously, throughout the way you get accused of being a hacker every game, but I mean that's just, you come to live with that. But
I think people also think that, you know, getting noticed is going to get you into a team. I mean, to get into a team, there needs to be a gap in a team. There needs to be a lineup change in the way.
If you're good enough, they'll make a gap.
Yeah. Well, question here is it
sometimes
is it worth sinking the time into developing a team versus trying to develop as an individual? Because I mean, we're telling the story of someone who's basically going, this team is what I need to make me get noticed so that I can leave you guys, and you know what I mean? It's like if someone's setting up a band, if you use that example, the guitarist's not going, well, I'm just using you guys to get gigs so that another scout can go, that guitarist's great, I'm going to move him to another band.
You don't tell them that from the start. Listen, guys, I'm
not saying you'd ever say that, but like, if that's your attitude, surely that amount of effort, if you put that into developing the team dynamic and your team does well, then it's a case of going, you know.
Yeah, but there will always be one player who stands out. It's like someone who gets like, CS is not, it's kind of, it's like you'll have your entry fragger and he will get the most frags around like that, but it's just individual play. So if people are watching the games, they're playing against people, like it's kind of spreads word of mouth like fire, really. Yeah. I play against this team, I'm like, fuck this guy, RoBoHoBo stood out, he wrecked us, his movement was perfect, he was always in the right place at the right time, probably hacking, but probably not.
I think I'll move in with him.
Yeah, I think I'll move in with him. But anyway, so it like spreads word of mouth, and then it goes next to, they played in some open div team, now they're first div, Luca's still doing really well, now look, now he's in prem.
You know where I find guys stand out the most is when the team's playing badly, because it's the one guy who still gets like, maybe not positive KD, but he's still like, he's playing, he's doing his plays right. It's not the whole team folds.
But what I do when I play pickups and teams play badly, I just bait my teammates and make sure I get a positive KPD. So that's.
I mean in a team. I'm not talking
but
like
people used to do that. I mean, Sonic used to do that. He's the bait teammates all the time, but bait them to die so you get good KPD. But okay, that's we can talk about that for hours. But let's move on to the gear, as you brought up before I interrupted you. Last week you were here, we sat for about half an hour looking at mouses, different click sensitivities. You always talk to me about, you know, having the perfect config, having your screen set up perfectly. You mentioned that my keyboard that I used for like 5 years had, what was it called again? Swamp cursor, which I read into, still don't understand it, but a friend of mine kind of explained it as well when he was doing coding and stuff like that. So let's talk about mouses real quick. So the gear kind of, we'll put the link to the, we'll bring it up right now. It's up on the screen right now. You can see it there. The mouses. But let's talk about that real quick. The optimal gear, as you talked about last week.
Yeah, I think, look, how important it is to have the right gear. I mean, different people will value that differently. Yeah. I mean, for me, having a 2% or 3% advantage over somebody else is huge. I mean, if you add that up over 5 players, it's a lot, you know. And if you can get an advantage with your headphones, with your mouse, with your keyboard, you know, whether they're big or small, to me it doesn't matter. You know, they're all inches and they all add up in the end of the day. So yeah, I think when it comes to a mouse, are you asking specifically about a mouse?
You're kind of like, you know, looking at specific gear which, you know, takes you from that next level. You're good, you've got great aim, but now you want to take it to that next level. You want to be like the pros. You want to have the optimal gear to make sure that you, we're not asking you to punt any sort of brandy or anything like that.
Well, I can give people a few quick pointers. I think firstly,
exactly
if you can avoid buying a laser mouse, buy an optical mouse. Go for the if you looking at the sensors, you want to go for an Avago or PixArt sensor, 3310 or 3090. Most of the Steel series and Razer mice actually use those sensors anyway. Other things to look at is the lift-off distance. I think a very low lift-off distance is very good. When you lift your mouse, sometimes your cursor moves around a little bit. A low lift-off distance is good to counter that, but that's also very it's something that you have to get used to. A lot of people get used to a high lift-off distance, and then they struggle with that. The right kind of surface as well is very important. The other thing that is often overlooked is something called click latency, which is when you actually click the button of your mouse, how long does it take to register on the computer? And I don't think people have paid much attention to that.
No, I didn't until you showed us that diagram.
Yeah,
but luckily my mouse was in the good spectrum according to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at there's a human benchmark or human reaction time test you can do online on a website where you click. You can actually notice like a 20-30 millisecond difference between how different mice actually how quick their clicks register. The actual movement of the mouse, generally, they're all pretty good.
And you've done some investigation into this. You've had an array of mouses, or you said you want to have an array of mouses to just kind of...
Yeah, look, there's guys that have done these kind of benchmarks and tested all these mice, but there's a few ones that are being used by sometimes pro gamers, some good players in South Africa as well that are actually off the charts bad in terms of click latency.
I tried to explain to last week. Unfortunately spent the week with Trevor with Cannibalistic, and he has the 6G V2, and I tried to explain to him. I brought up the website. I had my friend he's got his master's degree in computer science. I tried to explain to Trevor that keyboard has swamp cursor. Brought up the article you showed me, read through it, still didn't understand it.
What is swamp cursor in one sentence?
And then
okay, let me put it this way.
And he's like, no, I love this keyboard. I'm like, Trevor, you might be better.
He loves that keyboard, and so do many other players.
I know,
I use that keyboard as well, not because I want to anymore. I just haven't had the time to buy a different keyboard. But the thing is that there was a massive kind of trend to buying that keyboard. It was kind of the best.
It's compact.
The cheapest mechanical keyboard you can buy. It was very compact, very good keyboard. Actually, everything else considered.
We're not going to mention the keyboard.
But when you actually plug in that keyboard, you'll notice that your mouse movement changes. If you take a cheap keyboard, you plug it in, move your mouse, and you plug that keyboard in, it actually affects the movement of your mouse. It adds about 5 milliseconds of delay to your mouse.
Yeah.
To your actual movement of your mouse, which is quite hard to believe actually, because it's such a popular product and it's used like by many pros. But I mean, when it comes to keyboard, I think most mechanical keyboards are pretty good. If you're paying a good amount of money for it, it's probably a good keyboard to have.
Is that the keyboard?
This is the culprit.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
I've been using this keyboard for so
shameless plug.
long.
But look, this is the keyboard that apparently has the swamp cursor.
It's one of like
you press left a lot, I see.
Yeah.
There aren't actually many keyboards that have this problem, and that happens to be one of them.
And it's a terrible
one of the most
thing.
popular keyboards.
Luckily, Steel Secret brought out a new keyboard called the M something, but it's the same, but just with
the
lights.
new keyboards, the new Steel
It's
series
basically
don't
the
have
upgrade
that
of this one, but it's just got lights. So there you go. My shameless sponsor plug for the day is over. Thanks, Luca.
What I can say is that that keyboard is definitely a huge upgrade going from a non-mechanical keyboard going to this is definitely
why
an upgrade.
mechanical? Sorry, these.
I hate mechanicals. I can't.
Why mechanical over just a membrane or just a plain old trigger one?
Well, the main thing is there's a debounce time on the key itself, which adds a slight delay to your movement. But actually, the main reason is the internals of the keyboard and the generally your keyboards are interrupt based, which they work through a PS2 port. These are the more modern keyboards are all USB keyboards, so they're polling devices. So in other words, your computer's constantly polling your PC. So your cheaper keyboards, not necessarily to do with the fact that it's mechanical or not, but the cheaper keyboards have lower polling rates. And so you can definitely notice a difference when you, for example, strafe shooting. It kind of feels like you're ice skating. The players that haven't used a mechanical keyboard won't notice it at first, but when you use a mechanical keyboard for a month or so and you go back to a normal keyboard, you instantly notice that your strafe shooting is a lot worse.
Plus your hands are stronger because the buttons are so much harder.
Yes. It also just gives you a bit of tactile feedback as well, which is nice.
And they've also got that, some mechanical keyboards, if I'm not mistaken, have that button where if you, I'm going to bring the keyboard up again, not because I'm plugging it, but sometimes when you want to go for a key, if you press the other key as well, that key won't register. Some of them, I can't remember what it's called exactly, but if I'm like, it's almost like a rolling key.
It's called ghosting, yeah. Ghosting is where
so if I'm if I want to bring up bar menu or something, or I want to move forward, I by mistake like hit those two keys, but I put more pressure onto the A to move to the left or whatever, then the A picks up instead of me pressing the S or whatever like that. So that's also, I guess, one of the added benefits of having a mechanical keyboard over
definitely. You're looking for a keyboard with what they call it N-key rollover. In other words, there's any number of keys, simultaneous key presses that can register that all go through immediately.
Keyboard and post the Facebook status. This is my name when I roll my face on my keyboard.
Yeah, that all has to do with the circuitry inside of the keyboard.
Yeah.
For the way that it detects which keys actually press is based on lanes, horizontal and vertical lanes. And the more keys you want to simultaneously be able to press for it to work out the coordinate of that key, the more expensive it becomes to actually manufacture that circuit board.
Okay.
So that's basically why you want a mechanical keyboard.
I have a somewhat related question. What do you do for a living? Because this sounds like
sell keyboards.
Do you sell keyboards? No, but like this, it sounds like like you're very technically inclined. Like I consider myself somewhat technically versed, but you've said some words that I don't know.
That we'll look up later.
So
I've worked as a software developer mainly, and now at the moment I'm what's called a DevOps engineer, and I don't expect anyone to know what that is.
No, we'll Google that. We'll put a call to action of what a DevOps engineer is. Sounds interesting. Sounds like something you do in the military.
Yeah, sounds like a new CoD.
Development. The new CoD. Call of Duty 17. DevOps engineers. God, Call of Duty. What a mess. But anyway. Okay, so I just wanted to know because you've told me before that you worked, that you do things, but you just all these fancy words you're throwing around, all these technological terms. But let's so we've done keyboards and mouses. Let's move to possibly, I think,
headphones?
Screens. Or headphones.
Yeah.
I mean, headphones are pretty standard, I think.
No.
Oh, they're not? Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry. All right. Dad, tell us about headphones.
This is the only guy wearing headphones right now.
Yeah. I mean, these are fun. Okay, tell us.
Counter-Strike's actually like headphones that generally sound really bad for music and other things like high treble, low bass, or not a lot of bass, high treble. That's really good for CS because you get to hear things like bullets dropping on the floor, footsteps, grenades hitting walls, things like that. You hear much further away.
Why? Because it's not all ambient; it's very isolated sound.
Yeah. So when you're looking for a headset, generally the popular ones are all the worst. They're the worst ones to actually buy.
And the in-ear and the kind of over-ear, because a lot of guys wear both. So is that combating?
Well, no, that's more for LAN environment.
Noise cancellation.
It's so that you can, because if you're wearing a normal headset, you hear all the kind of external sound leaking in, and it just gets really noisy.
So you're saying that the in-ears are the ones that you're using kind of cheap, kind of...
No, you get really good ones as well.
But you're saying you're recommending, or at least you're saying the ones that have kind of the crappy bass and high trebs and all that sort of stuff. Is that for the in-ears?
I'm talking about normal headsets, yeah. So what you're looking for is a small driver. In other words, the speaker. The smaller the speaker is, the better. The more crisp the sound, the more treble you get out of the headphones. And then you get the closed ear and the open ear. So for CS, a lot of people buy the closed ear because of LAN environments where it filters out a lot of the noise, but that's actually the worst kind of headphone to buy, because the moment you have an open soundscape, in other words, when the side of the headphone is open, it allows, it creates a bigger stage, a sound stage almost. So it sounds as if, when you hear a footstep, it sounds as if it's, coming from a place outside of your head, where if you're using closed headphones, all the sound emanates from inside your head almost. It feels like the sound's coming from yourself.
So open is better. Open is slightly better.
Open is definitely better, yeah.
What headset do you use?
I use a closed headset at the moment, the 9H, SteelSeries 9H, but I know the open ones are definitely better. No, 9H.
No, I think the open ones, the V2s have that open...
They have the open one, yeah.
Right. I think we've got a pair of those somewhere. Is he going to fetch it again? Stop bringing all his gear over here, like this is what you need. But yeah, so the open, like you said, like I actually kind of get what you're saying. I've actually somewhat experienced that before. Like it almost feels like, it like happens like here, like in your actual head.
Which is great, like you said. It's
those
are open
this podcast is sponsored by SteelSeries. No, but this is an example. So these are these are sort of open ear. Like they've got kind of.
No, they are. I mean, you can see the backing isn't closed.
Yeah.
That grid, that mesh you see on the back there.
To this camera over here, so you can get a focus. So this is kind of like open ear. This is the ones you're talking about. These are the ones I used for like a good 5-6 years, and I mean.
So that gives you a much better kind of positional awareness. When you hear a sound, you can exactly pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily translate so well when you go to a LAN environment where you've got external noise, which is why guys use the in-ears. And again, with the in-ears as well, I mean, when you get those little rubber fittings you put over it, and you can actually create like a seal where it feels like you're in a submarine with your nose closed or in a bathroom or something, and that's actually terrible for your sound.
It's the same effect,
Yeah, you actually should put on the smaller rubber where it leaves a small gap around it so that it's not like this high pressure thing going on inside your ear.
Yeah, you essentially want to hear the noise, but you don't want it to be like inside your brain. You know, you kind of want to just like
basically opposite what you're saying for good music. Good music, you love it when it's like closed and there's no other sound.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So headphones.
And you want to avoid surround sound at all costs.
Oh
no, never buy a surround sound headset.
Okay, like I think a surround sound 7.151 is the biggest farce in headphones. If people sell you headphones based on they have
it's technically impossible.
It is impossible. It's kind of just an ambient sound where they kind of like just try and make it sound like virtual. It's a virtual thing.
They're blurring the left and right so that there's like a little bit of left coming in your right, so it feels like it's in the front.
So if you ever buy headphones and they sell you on 7.1 surround sound, tell them to get stuff.
Yeah, look, the thing is,
get something else.
Go get something else.
There are a lot of games that can actually utilize that, and it does kind of
single-player horror games.
It makes it more immersive because it does kind of create this illusion that you're in a 3D environment.
It's like a virtual surround sound necessarily, not necessarily like speakers, but
the main problem is that Counter-Strike, the algorithm that they use for the audio is very primitive. I mean, 1.6 had better sound than CSGO, and what they're using is called it's called the stereo crossfade. That's the algorithm that they use in CSGO. In other words, all there is a left and a right, and it fades from left to right, which is why if you're you can't hear when something is above you or below you, and why you'll notice good players often move around when they hear sound.
But you hear different things from different sides.
Well, it's because you can't pinpoint the sound when you're stationary. When you're stationary and you're looking at a wall and there's something exploding on the other side, you have to kind of move to one side and then you hear it going louder on the one.
It's almost like a fake sonar sort of thing where
it's exactly it is sonar. That's exactly what you're
rather than the object.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You have to put your headphone kind of towards it.
Yeah, in other games with more kind of advanced implementations, you can actually pinpoint the sound without moving, but in Counter-Strike you can't. So that's why.
Interesting.
And I mean, the moment you switch to in-game as well, you've got the options like speakers, headphones, 7.1. The moment you switch to other modes, like for example speaker, there's a crossfade that's constantly happening. In other words, if a grenade explodes on my right-hand side, I can still hear a little bit of it on my left-hand side. There's always some audio on both channels, where with headphones, it cancels out completely. I'll only hear it in my right ear, and there won't be a single noise on my left ear. So that mode that you select in-game is also quite important.
Jeez. Okay, so sum that up. Headphones, some open ear perhaps for home use, closed ear for LAN use. Cheaper the better. Not cheaper the better, but obviously just not going for those fancy 7.1s. And I think that pretty much
microphone. I mean, a lot of people don't talk enough about the quality of the microphone on a headset.
Well, I mean, you play public games. It sounds like the microphone's like
like you're chewing on it.
That's gonna sound horrible.
The microphone's important, but I mean, I think the Counter-Strike as a whole, I mean, having good audio is incredibly important. Gives you a huge advantage. And I mean, that's where most people get accused for hacking, is when they can hear things that other players simply can't hear, and it's because of wrong headset, wrong configuration, and also volume. People don't know this, but I mean, the volume that you should be playing on is actually really loud. I mean, I was playing for probably 5 or 6 years on just like whatever was bearable to my ears until Tucconi. This was in 1.6 until Tucconi. I put on Tucconi's headset and I thought, this is so loud. How can you even play like this? And he told me he just hears way more on the map.
That's actually true. I play because I'm usually on. I mean, like once again going to the casual side, I'm usually on TS with like several friends playing CSGO, and so my sound is like barely there. Like it's
because you want to hear.
It's like 0.1. But when I play like when I play Luca, them I put it up to like 1, like like 1, 2. But it gives you a bit of a heart attack when you're holding a sight really close and someone fires an AWP shot and you need like flip your desk. But it's like I agree, loud
especially in a closed headset, it like becomes like where there's an explosion, it's like it's happening in your head almost.
So many frights, like guy like shoulder peeks you real quick and takes a shot at you and like kills you, and you shit yourself because it's like it's right there. But another thing I want to talk about is screens. I mean, obviously we chatted a little bit yesterday about the 144 hertz stuff like that. I mean, just the kind of optimal screen, and I guess it kind of translates across to pretty much all competitive games. Is having a 144 hertz screen is just basically right up there. You need that screen, everything, and you'll tell us why.
Yeah, I think the main reason why the 144 hertz screen is so important isn't actually about the hertz. It's about the input latency. So all the screens have inherent latency. So when an image gets sent to the screen, it renders on screen, and there's a delay, usually like 17 or 32 milliseconds. And as the screens have progressed, these high-end gaming monitors, they've focused very much on the input latency, and that's what they've really fixed, which is why you notice such a big difference between some of the older 120 hertz monitors and the 144 hertz monitors. It's because of the
CRTs. The first rage I went to, 2013 was the first rage I went to, and guys were playing with CRTs.
Yeah, you still can't beat the CRT in terms of input latency. I think it's just it's still the best monitor to use, a CRT, but
Except when your desk is this big.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah,
who uses that anymore? Like, you can't really still use that. I mean, and
especially
carry that around to a
the size
LAN.
they're getting now. I mean, by the death of CRTs, when they were getting to like 24 inch and that sort of thing. Like, I mean, that was your entire desk.
You had was it 24 inch CRTs?
Yeah, I mean, you were getting monitors and TVs were massive.
Oh, of course, TVs. Yeah, okay. I forgot about TVs. Those big flat TVs. So
wait, can I ask something?
Luca, you're not going to bring your screen out for the camera.
Your massive.
No, I'm joking. I'm kidding.
We said like, okay, what's the best type of mouse? What's the best type of keyboard? That where do you start? So if you had to recommend, would you go? The most important thing is getting the best mouse first, or best monitor, or best. Where would you start? Because obviously it's great. It's the same as
monitors are 6,000-7,000.
I would definitely say mouse and mouse pad.
Yeah,
having a proper mouse and a good mouse pad is starting point.
Okay.
And then maybe
you'll
screen, and then
you'll see the most
keyboard.
difference by improving your mouse.
You can get a Microsoft Intelli mouse. It'll probably cost you like $100. That's probably one of the best mouses still to have. Mice. To have.
Mises.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Hand peripheral.
So
the thing about that mouse, why it was so popular, is the shape. I mean, it was an amazing shape to hold, and a lot of the Steel Series
are based on that. Definitely.
Are based off of that design. And I don't know if you have ever seen the Final mouse that was released quite recently, which is also a really good mouse. That mouse is also kind of
because personally, I hate these mice that are happening. It feels like every twitch that you have on any knuckle is going to hit 3 or 4 keys. They're built like I don't know, something out of saw.
I think for me specifically for mouse, it's like the simpler the better. Like I have big hands, so like I use the Rival. So when I put my hand, it's nice. I play with a flat hand, but then sometimes I play with a claw grip because I got big hands. But also, those buttons, you get those like the Razer Mamba, which is the one with 1,000 buttons on the side for like MMOs and stuff like
Naga.
that.
I've got the Naga.
Naga, that's the one.
But like for me, it's like 3 buttons, and they're like 9 over here, of which I've programmed 3. That's it. You can do so much stuff.
When I played World of Warcraft, I would have loved to have had one of those mouses, just because like you have all your spells macroed. But like, I think having those buttons, it's both. It's like a double-edged sword. It's useful. Like I bind my knife and my grenades there, so it's like it's very useful for me to like switch around through those. But at the same time, like it could be detrimental. Like I've seen some guys by accident like about to take a shot with an M4A1S and they start unscrewing their silencer.
Oh, because they bumped the button.
Because they bumped that button. I mean, that can cost you a round essentially.
Yeah, I have to say I prefer a mouse that's got a very sleek, simple design.
No buttons.
You generally just need 5 buttons, the 2 on the side, and you're generally just using one of those for push to talk. I think with when you're trying to duel someone in Counter-Strike and you're trying to push buttons on the side of your mouse, it's a bit awkward, and it actually it definitely affects your aim, which is why you shouldn't really be using too many buttons on your mouse.
Menu to that or something, so you don't have to like
stuff you're doing early game.
Good things to bind there is like pulling out certain grenades, smoke grenades, flashbangs, because those things you're pushing the button exactly because you're not currently in an engagement. So that's.
That's what I said. I've got my cycle grenades and knife. So I mean,
cycle grenades. You shouldn't cycle your grenades.
You
should have a button per grenade.
I know them so well. I know like 2 is flash, 3 is smoke, 1 is my HE or my molly.
So you press a button 3 times to get to your smoke.
Yeah. But I'm one of those dudes who I expend all my equipment in the first 5 seconds of the round, so I basically don't worry about it after that, or I just don't throw equipment at all. But yeah, so screens is obviously, as you said, like the new screens coming out, but they are quite pricey. But that's the great thing about screens; the prices come down very quickly.
Oh yeah.
And that's always happens with technology. The minute the new screens start coming out, these ones come down. And I mean, brands obviously BenQ, some of your Asus monitors as well. Obviously, Asus there's the Acer one, there's ISO, there's a lot of them. But as I said, we're not going to mention any brand. We're not going to single out one brand because it's not how we do this. But there are a lot of brands, but they are quite pricey right now. They're about $6.5 grand. I know because I got scammed on Gumtree for a screen.
Yeah.
If you guys remember
I
that.
can say that
You
the
can
best
get no
value
screen for half the price of a...
the best value for money at the moment is probably the BenQ. What is it? It ends on 11Z. 11Z, I think. Yeah.
XL24 something Z. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
2411Z. Yeah.
That one.
That one's a really good.
But
and
it's all games really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really like I've seen guys. I mean, even at that Gamers Fest comp, some of the Dota players were like, because they were playing on preset PCs and screens, and the Dota guys were like, "Now I'm gonna go fetch my screen." I'm like, "Why?" It's like, "Guys, 144. It's 144 hertz." I'm like, "This is 60 hertz." I was like, "It's Dota, dude. What's the difference?" But they actually
no, there is a
You're used to
difference, but I mean it's
something.
small. You know, obviously it's going to affect you more in an FPS game than it will on those types of games.
Dota,
But
Dota to some extent as well has some action moments.
Oh, there are a lot of Twitch moments in that,
Yeah.
but I think that's a comfortability thing. If guys are used to 144, then
I mean, I even like watching this weekend, like looking at my screen and then looking over at Trevor's 144. It's just playing a game like Diablo. Like it just looks so much nicer on his screen. It looks like nice and bright, and obviously. Screen settings, like, you know, guys playing with high brightness, high gamma. What's the other one that they use that brings out the kind of like light?
Digital vibrance.
Vibrance, yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about like kind of settings for your screen if you're playing these kind of games that have dark corners, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the digital vibrance thing really comes from 1.6, where you had Nuke, which had very dark vents, and when a person was in the vent, if you had the digital vibrance on high, you actually could see the person quite clearly. And I think it just makes the game look a little bit better. Makes the models a bit more noticeable. They kind of pop out. They stand out a bit more because the high contrast gets emphasized. It gets emphasized with the digital vibrance a little bit. So, yeah, I mean I wouldn't say that's critically important, but I mean most
inches here. It's like literally if you can add.
Yeah, I think most pro players would have a fairly high digital vibrance.
Well, on my screen that broke, I had my digital vibrance up quite high for CSGO. It actually did. It makes a lot of difference. But now, obviously, playing on a laptop screen, you know, nothing really matters. Can't really see anything really. Like, take a duel a mile away, you end up shooting it like a paint can, and you think it's someone's head. You're like, why is he not dying? And then it's a paint can. But yeah, the screen obviously makes. I think that's kind of should be the last on your shopping list, unless you're really rich. Then go for that first.
Yeah, I mean it's quite expensive. It's a big investment to make, and. But I think it adds a lot of value to the game. I mean, it makes the game a lot more playable.
It's
like that,
well.
you feel so much more connected to the game.
Maybe use your computer for other things as well, like movies.
Not just Counter-Strike.
Like,
But like, for movies, I mean, anything. Like, it's just the screen. I think is probably one of like Luca said yesterday. Like, you could have a pretty average PC, buy a good screen, it looks like a new machine. Doesn't run like a new machine, but it looks like a new machine, at least on the screen.
Well, funnily enough, the kind of 60 hertz, 75 hertz monitors, the high end monitors, those ones actually look a lot better. Like, they generally don't have these washed out colors or, you know, the kind of artifacts that you get from a 144 hertz. But 144 hertz is all about performance. That's what they're aiming for, and it's all about the latency, reducing that latency, which means they want to do as little to that image, as little post rendering on that image, get it out as fast as possible, which means all these fancy things that Samsung does with the colors and this and that and tweaking gamma, those things don't happen on these high-end gaming monitors.
Well, I mean, there are a ton of reviews out, obviously, for Tucconi, including our own review. You can check that out. But there are a ton of people that go through. It's like there was a YouTuber you mentioned, or was it you that mentioned it? Someone who does a lot of tech reviews on those sort of things. I think it was maybe you that mentioned it.
Yeah.
But if we can find that out later, we'll just throw it in the description. There's a lot of guys who go kind of really into we don't want you to sit here and take us through every single step of the manual, but like there are guys out there who really just dive real deep into these things. And obviously the new screens, like you said, there's a lot of different settings and stuff that guys can go through, change things and stuff like that, make their game look better. And a lot of these new screens are coming even with, I think some of the ISO monitors come with preset gaming kind of profiles that you can select. If you're playing FPS games, stuff like that.
That profile is very important, actually. It actually changes... it actually enables or disables sometimes that post-rendering that you get, which is if you have a monitor that has a gaming mode, you definitely should be using it because it actually makes the monitor perform better and it reduces the input latency.
Okay. Let's move away from hardware. I think we pretty much discussed every PC in your arsenal right now. Move away from hardware for a second, moving to software, config. You've always spoken to me about players needing to have the best config, their perfect config. Now, my question is, before you tell us a little bit about this config, does that tailor to machines specifically? If you've got a low-end machine, do you have to have a separate config from someone who has a high-end machine that can run, does that make a difference in CSGO?
Not really, no. You're always going for performance over what, visual impact. And that's kind of a trend you find with lower ranked players, is they're always picking high settings, high video detail. They're trying to let the game look as good as possible, and actually that's working against input latency. When you start changing all those things and you put them on low and you use lower resolutions, what you get is
using a laptop, so
you get reduced input latency, which is that feeling of being connected to your game. And that's actually the reason that a lot of players use 4x3. It's not because it looks great, it actually looks terrible. They're using it because it actually feels different. It feels more connected, and that comes from that lower input latency.
That's crazy.
So
okay.
So do you?
So is there a native resolution you should be looking at? I mean, you can't say to go to the lowest. I mean, what's the lowest? It's like 640, 480 or something.
It comes down to like personal preference. As you say, a lot of the guys got used to the 4x3 when they played on monitors like that. It's just a better resolution for them. I personally prefer the 16:9.
Well, if you look at pro players and what they're using, you'll see there's a definite trend towards using lower resolutions than there is guys using 16:9.
Smoother, more connected. Models are bigger as well, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're a new player, using 16:9 could actually be a benefit because you actually see more. Your viewing angle is wider. But when you're playing at a high level, your game sense is so good. You're always looking in the right place. Anyway, so that extra benefit you get from 16:9 kind of goes away. You still miss out on a bit of details here and there, but I think that feeling of connectedness for me is more important than.
Do you think a lot of the newer players coming into the scene now, like guys who started CSGO and now are playing at the competitive scene, do you think they perhaps are the ones that are using the more, I would say, recent resolutions, as in like the 1920 by 1080s or 16:9, 16:10, depending what screen they're? Do you think those are the guys that are kind of, and this kind of the players that use the 4x3 guys coming from 1.6? Do you think they're kind of? Do you think they'll ever start moving towards that high resolution as screens become better and stuff like that? You're saying being more connected to the game. Do you think guys will start moving towards that resolution eventually? Do you think guys will just stick to their guns and stay with the 4x3?
I think it all depends on that feeling you get when you play. I mean, the input latency is what it's all about for me. Like getting that number as low as you can. That when you move your mouse, how many milliseconds pass before it gets displayed on your monitor? That's really it. And I think the limitations there is the game engine, your video card, CPU. There's a certain amount of processing that just has to happen, and it takes a certain amount of time to render a frame and display it on your screen. And I think when the hardware, is able to produce a frame in 1 or 2 milliseconds, then you're going to see there won't be a reason to use 4x3 anymore. Then you could use whatever resolution suits you.
A lot of information today.
Yeah,
I like it.
digesting
I really like it.
I know I need to go get a new keyboard and new mouse.
Yeah, I'm thinking, luckily.
Although my theory on keyboards, and I go back to this, I know it's a pleb one, but like at $170 for a keyboard, when I rage and I smash it, I can just pull out the next one, plug it in, and we're good to go.
True.
Whereas when you smash a $2,500 mechanical keyboard, it's like, you regret that.
Well,
There's something very few people
buy a $2,500 mechanical keyboard
and just smash the tiny one.
You keep your 170, you just like hang it next to you and just punch it. But
fair enough.
It's wealth of information.
I never hit my keyboard.
Yeah,
You've never lived.
I hit my life. Just joking.
A half an hour chatting about. I mean, it's fantastic. Like, this is actually very important. This turned into like almost like having a tech guy on the. It's not really a CSGO guy anymore. You're not a tech guy. But let's move on to recent events. While we move away from this recent events, we chatted about it right before we came in here. Was the VAC ban. I want to get your take on that because, like I said, I wrote a piece about it where I kind of, what you guys were discussing yesterday on the WhatsApp group about, there's a little bit of giving the benefit of the doubt behind his story, his claim, which I'll explain in a second. So
so give our viewers and some of our panelists some
idea
what the hell is going
Gareth
on.
and viewers. So a player.
Doesn't say me.
Dan and Gareth and the viewers and Luca and Roman, where's he? Basically what happened was a player by the name of Inverts, obviously won't give his real name, he got a VAC ban. Now Invert's been playing for the better part of 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. He's a relatively respected player. In real life he's a really nice guy, I think. First times I've met him, he's a really cool guy. And he's kind of not the person you'd expect it from. And his excuse, or his reason, his reason was that he had a bunny hop script on a Smurf. Bunny hop is just something that let you like bunny hop. Bunny hopping in CSGO, you jump. Okay. It's very hard to do. You can only get like 4 or 5, I think, or whatever. But you bunny hop to increase your movement speed, really. People get scripts that does it automatically for them. So that was his reason. Was he got VAC banned? He a Smurf, trying out a bunny hop script, and then the backban obviously registered onto his main account as well when he changed accounts, and then boom, he got backbanned during a pickup game with his friends.
He got banned on his main as well.
Yeah, he got banned on his Smurf and his main, and Valve is efficient that way. They will catch you wherever you are. And so that basically, I just want to get Dan's input because Dan has played with him, played against him in his 15 years.
So that's like going, I used steroids while at an amateur competition, and now I'm in a professional competition, and the steroids don't count anymore.
Yeah, it's actually, it's probably a better analogy than what I had in my article. Maybe I'll edit that quick. No, but Dan, thoughts on the whole scenario?
Yeah, for me, it's a very sad situation actually, because he's been in the community for so long. He's made so many friends. We all know him. He's played at so many LAN tournaments. So I mean, it's very sad that that 10-year spell that he's had is now going to be defined by this kind of blemish on his record, which is quite sad.
The big red text on his Steam profile as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite tough. I'm inclined to actually kind of believe his story, but regardless, I mean, I think as far as people recruiting him into their teams, I mean, I think he's pretty much done for. I can't see people overlooking the fact that he actually did install something which he knew was not legitimate, wasn't legal. So I mean, there isn't really an excuse for it. The extent or the seriousness of what he says he did, I mean, it isn't something that I would do, and I don't think that any of the other top players in the country would do that. So it's not really excusable, but I mean, it's also at the same time, it's not the worst thing you could possibly have done.
Yeah, it's not like guys were linking videos, obviously, of him like snapping, and even like we watched it yesterday together, and you said like it's a bit.
I saw that. I'm not so sure. Like we need to see that actual demo. I mean, we really need a demo. Video
it could
is not.
Be the other guys. Like, maybe the other guy's input latency was very slow. We didn't think of that. We didn't think of that.
Like the guy streaming his play.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe he was lagging. But like I said, I said like a lot of people are giving him the benefit of the doubt. Angelo from Virtue released his statement saying that a lot of the pro players, the top guys, the older guys, are finding it very hard to believe that Invert would just do something like this, tarnish his career. Actually, a better analogy would be you've seen Horrible Bosses.
Okay.
Where Charlie pees in a children's playground and gets a record as a sex offender.
Okay.
It's basically what this is. Yeah, he hacked on an account. Now he's
we don't know what he actually did. I mean, we know what his official story is. And I mean, the people that know him are going to be more inclined to believe what he's saying, and the people that don't are going to just condemn him and say
I want
hacker.
to believe. I really do. But I mean, it's
just the moral of the story is don't stuff around with VAC bannable things, whether it's a Smurf account or not. Because I mean, it's the kind of thing as well. If you go, I'm going to learn CSGO and I'm going to learn how to bunny hop or whatever, and you're going to get the script or whatever, and then you get good enough, and then you get used to having that.
But the script doesn't even teach you how to bunny hop.
But you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But then you get used to that crutch of always having. It's the steroids example, not because that was a perfect analogy that you ruined with the Charlie story, but because it's the fact that like if you get used to something that you can't do as being just done for you, then we get to the level where everyone's doing it and they learned the hard way. You're not suddenly going to go, oh, well, now I'm going to learn for real. You're going to...
I think he just downloaded it for fun with, like, I mean, I used to go to land with my friends. I was 1.6 and we'd put Warlocks on and kill each other. Like, everyone's hacked before. Like, not necessarily like...
Hey, not me.
Okay, not me either. I've never hacked in CSGO ever.
No.
So is this you confessing now?
No, this is like back in 1.6. It wasn't even a legal copy of the game. It was an illegal copy of the game. You were just playing in a LAN with two friends, whatever.
So now we got you for software piracy and for cheating.
And hacking. But I can't do it. I'm so
An older
bad.
boy made you do it.
Yeah. That was definitely peer pressure. But yeah, I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Like I kind of want to believe his story, but you know, a lot of people have been saying he's gotten a lot better in the last few months. But I saw him on LAN like 2 months ago. He was at the Gamers Fest and wasn't doing anything spectacular. I mean,
no, he played really well actually at Gamers Fest. I mean, for me, the main thing that's really upsetting for me about the whole thing is, I mean, I've been in the scene for 15 odd years that I've been playing Counter-Strike, and this is the first time that somebody who's actually played at a high level has been banned, has received a VAC ban. In 15 years, I cannot remember or recall a single player that has gone to LANs, played at the top level, and actually received a VAC ban. I think a lot of the youngsters think that this is quite common, that, you know, people just get banned all the time, and they have this misconception that at the top level there's probably 20 or 30% of the guys are hacking. That's not true at all. I mean,
Do you think that, I know you can't prove it till someone is banned, but like, do you think there are people who they're just skirting the realms of kind of illegality?
I don't think in South Africa at the kind of highest level, I don't think there's anyone really.
Yeah.
And the guys that are generally using these things or resorting to that are generally youngsters, and the guys that are kind of on the brink of making
They
it.
want to see results quickly.
They want to break into the scene, and they think this is a quick way to get there.
The kind of guys who buy followers in the social media game as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I want to have 40,000 followers now. So they just
Exactly.
buy them.
And it's usually good players that also do this. You know, they're already good, and they think that this is just going to give them the edge just to get into a good team, and it just doesn't work like that.
A friend of mine last year, actually, or maybe 2 years ago, he was playing. We always play CS together, and I kind of stopped playing with him, and they made a team together, the rest of them, and he was okay. He wasn't great, but he all of a sudden got really good, and he's like, and then he got backbanned, and then when we asked him,
You need better friends.
or I was more of an acquaintance, put it that way. But anyway, he got backbanned, and then he also said no. He clicked a trading site and it downloaded achievement to his PC, which is a bullshit story. And then in private, he told some of the guys no. He just wanted to add value to the team, and he felt like he wasn't adding value to the team, so he downloaded a hack.
Sure.
And he hacked. And I mean, this is a nice guy. This is a good, God-fearing Christian boy that did this. I mean, no, he really is like very religious. Like it tells you that this is like anybody can do this. Like, I mean. Like you say you don't think a lot of guys in the top upper echelons of CSGO South Africa aren't hacking, but then again, the other side of this coin is that, say Invert Story is absolute bullshit and he was hacking, that's going to open up a wide range of speculation as to who is actually legit. It's the same thing that happened in the
I don't think so. The guys
so.
that aren't legit are the ones getting banned. I mean, it's inevitable. You will eventually get banned. If you are cheating, you're eventually going to get a ban. You know, whether it takes 6 months or if it takes a year, you're eventually going to drop out and get a VAC ban.
Yeah.
And I mean, let history be the proof. I mean, this is the first time in 15 years that somebody at the kind of higher level of CS got a VAC ban that I can recall. And I think it's a difference in perspective. The guys that are playing at that level, they've got everything on the line. Their integrity's on the line. This is important to them. The game's important to them. The guys lower down, to them, you know, even if he's a nice Christian boy or whatever, to him it's just a game, you know. He's just playing a game and downloading some hacks for fun. To him, it's not really such a big crime, but to the guys higher up, it's a massive big deal. You know, it's something that they couldn't imagine possibly doing. So I mean, that's just different levels of players.
A very big part of me believes his story, and I hope that the truth does come out that it was the bunny hop script. I hope you can find some way of proving it. Like I've often been tempted to do a video on the different types of hacks, legit, not even joking, just like saying like these are the hacks and this is what they do, because it's a cool thing. It's a common question people want to know. They want to know what, like, you know, how to spot these hacks.
What do drugs smell and taste like?
Yeah.
What does cocaine smell like?
No, but you know what I mean? Like to say like I saw a guy did it for IGN a while ago, and I was like, this is a cool video, but he's just asking about. I want to really just look into the technicalities of things, but I was not going to risk putting it on. I mean, I would have proof because I have video evidence. Oh, guys, I am actually hacking right now. But the same thing happened. It would transfer to my main account, and if that happened, and people just saw a vac on my main account, they would not worry to go back and look at my videos and my history. They'll just be like, he's a fucking cheater. He's out. And I mean, that's why I'm kind of hoping there's some way he can prove that he used the bunny hop script and he can clear his name and hopefully one day compete, although it will be very difficult unless it's like a group of his friends that decide to make a team again. Then it's going to be a really, really tough.
I honestly don't think he's going to be able to clear this up. I mean, Valve aren't very helpful in the first place. So
you can't make a new account, buy a new account?
You know, but people know him. We know who he is, and you know, however light his offense might be, I mean, the rest of us, me at least, I mean, for me, I wouldn't want to play with somebody that's been known to have used something in the game that I'm trying to play.
Shadowy feel on your team as well.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden their team cheats, not just him, like the whole team cheats. And
yeah, shame, man. It's too much of a sad note to end the podcast on, so let's talk about something. Let's talk about...
I thought we were going back to that rap that we were...
Oh,
no.
No, but I guess something to finish off on would be, obviously we didn't actually talk a lot about Carbon, your MGO, your bread and butter, not just your bread and butter, but your gaming bread and butter. Let's talk about Carbon. Let's look at some future developments. Look, I mean, this year already we've had about 3 or 4 big competitions with some nice prize money as well. Guys have been traveling a little bit, going to Joburg, coming back here for stuff like that. Looking at the year going forward, the Masters, you guys are currently, I think, second ranked. I put you second ranked. I think, you know, there's going to take a couple more lands of winning to get that number 1 seed. But looking forward, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Carbon, CS, and then we'll move to Dota and then to the other esports that we don't care about. I'm joking. I love Dota. But there, let's go. Carbon, future, go.
Yeah, I mean, Carbon's hasn't been around very long. I mean, I started it last year, July, August, around about there. So, I mean, this first phase really has been just trying to get the right players into the various teams, trying to get titles that we can do well in. And I think I've achieved that goal now, and the next phase is going to be to try and secure funding, trying to just improve the brand and actually start, you know, building the brand, getting websites up. And there's so much admin around it, really.
It's tough doing it.
It's a lot of stuff, especially if you work full time. So it's been really tough, and I'm very happy with the results that we're able to achieve and the short kind of space of time in which we've been able to do it.
It's a very young organization. Well, being a young organization and having an organization filled with youngsters, like your CS team is, I mean, you've got 4 guys under the age of 20, and you've got Hakim, who's 22, 23. Your CS team is got, it's kind of a young team. You've got Charles, he's quite young, he's about 17, and you've got the other guys who've been around the scene for ages. I mean, I used to play Dota with them back in Warcraft. Then, you know, your CoD team as well, also just youngsters, the Call of Duty console team, also very young guys. And then your CoD PC team, I have no idea who's in that team, but they also.
But they're probably young.
No, actually, I know one of them. He's about my age. So yeah, it's a very young organization. And now, do you prefer having younger guys? Because obviously, this being a very new organization, you're growing, and you know, in 5 years' time, or hopefully not, hopefully in 5 months' time, when esports makes a lot of money, you know, you've got very young guys that are now at the cusp of decision whether do I go to university, do I go to work, or do I continue playing esports? Is that your goal? Is that it?
Please say it is, because
no, I think I generally prefer having older players in teams and things that are easier to manage. The younger guys are more mobile. They like to sniff around a lot, move around a lot.
Very true.
And so, I mean, my preference would obviously be for more mature players that have the experience. But I'm actually quite liking this current lineup of youngsters that I have. And I created the team out of necessity because, you know, the players that I had moved on. 2 of them left to Bravado, or 3 actually.
I think that's a story for every single MGO in. I just think you know about it. Just be warned in advance. That happens a lot. As it.
Yes, I know.
In an MGO, it's going to happen a lot.
Well, so you can approach it 2 ways. You can either work with the kind of player pool that's kind of known and that's out there, or you can develop new players and increase the size of the pool so that it becomes impossible for the guys above you to recruit from you because they're sitting with, you know, good players as well. Who do they switch out? So, I mean, for me, stability is very important. Being able to build a team and keep the lineup for an extended period of time. That's where you get good synergy, where you get good teamwork, and you just build relationships with people. And that's been the hardest thing for me since starting Carbon, is just getting guys to stick together and just to believe in the dream, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, that's essentially exactly what you did. You kind of dug deep into the pool and you pulled out 4.
Very, very deep.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess out of those players, okay, you brought out Flexi, which is another hour podcast in its own. You brought out Flexi. Just backstory, he's this player who everyone thought hacked and apparently doesn't, and now he's just wrecking everyone at LAN. But so you brought Flexi out, you brought JT, who was kind of well known. He played for Flipside, he played for XTC, I think, as well. He played for a couple of teams. Then Fady as well, also quite well known online. He's probably one of my favorite players in the scene at the moment. He is just, like I said, he's an old man trapped in a young man's body when it comes to CSGO. He's just really knowledgeable. And then Makmo as well, you pulled him out from CoD out of nowhere. And then obviously Dean, just to round them all up together, been around for probably almost as long as you have in CSGO, Battlefield, Call of Duty, whatever game he decides to play. So you've done just that. And I mean, the same with the Dota team. The Dota team has young guys who've been around for ages, and they all come together. I mean,
old guys,
those guys have played.
old guys. Yeah.
Hey?
You said young guys that have been around for
young
ages.
Guys and old guys, like they all kind of mix together. Like you've got Charles Young, all those guys, then you kind of throw them together. But yeah, I mean, it's looking bright. I mean, obviously we've got plenty of tournaments coming up, and obviously having now being one of the favorite CSGO teams going in, it obviously gives you guys a bit of an edge, and you guys came second for Dota2 as well. Your Call of Duty team is pretty much winning everything as far as I know, both PC and Xbox. So it's looking good. It's looking good. And as you said, you wanted this organization to kind of, and you are looking for representation. Hint, hint. He's looking. If you want to get involved with Carbon, this is the man to speak to. But it's obviously a tough uphill. As you said, you work 9 to 5, and you're able to take a 2-hour lunch break to come to a podcast. I mean, that's always a plus.
True. Life is easy.
Yeah, how much is this water again?
Yeah.
Can I also have some more water, please?
Well, actually, we'll get some water off camera because I'm actually going to start wrapping it up. There is one thing I wanted to mention before we go. He has a brother who's also very good at CSGO, plays for Vada Gaming, Elusive. I actually wanted to bring that up in the beginning. I don't know why I didn't. But that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask as well, man. All about Elusive.
Well, now we have to have him back.
Now we can take another 15 minutes. We add another 15 minutes talking about Elusive.
Well, we just invite him back.
We'll invite him back. We always tell our guests we'll have them back, but I think Dan definitely we will. And hopefully next time we'll
so basically you're confessing to having lied to all our other guests.
Probably. No, we definitely will have all the guests back, man. But Dan in particular, now you've actually given me, just the ideas like filling my head now. What can we do with Dan? We're just going to throw tons of gear at him and make him test it all live on camera.
Yeah, that'd be a great one. Blind test.
Take them apart.
Which brand was which based on a blind test.
But yeah, let's we'll end it on that note. Anything you have left to say?
No, I've learned a hell of a lot about CSGO. I feel like with all these tips and this peripheral stuff that I'm not
just going to go from silver to global
I might
overnight.
actually just play a game.
Yeah. Dan, any closing thoughts? Obviously, we're going to throw all your social media for Carbon, etc. You do have your own page, I think, as well. Prerequisite for DGL.
Oh no, I don't have a page.
Oh, you don't?
Not for
a fan page, no.
No, I thought you.
I couldn't get myself to create one.
No,
it doesn't feel right. Like.
Yeah. Well, actually, you might not know. After this podcast, people might be hounding you for tips on gear and stuff, and you could be like, Dan the Tech Man.
Spoof, not the guy that's been playing for 15 years. The guy that was on the podcast.
No, man, I'm talking about all your tech knowledge. I'm saying Dan the Tech Man. There you go. There's your new page there. Dan the Tech Man.
Maybe I should go into that.
But thanks so much, Dan. Obviously, having you is always great, and we will actually have you back again. Not just like we don't just say that to guests to sound nice. We do actually plan to have all.
Because we're not nice. So
if they're not nice, yeah.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and we'll obviously see you and your team at the next arena comp, as our producer shouted on that side. But thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll be back next week with the O Show.
Cheerio.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to think how to do the intro. Alrighty. I must get that one. Alrighty, welcome back. Welcome back. It's like a fucking nigga podcast.
They went for coffee. They watched the previous. Well, this is a good intro already. I think you should just start with this.
This is the best intro you could possibly have.
It's natural, and it's how it actually happened.